why am I doing this? If it's because you've got the big vision and you're excited about it and it drives you to want to work on weekends and want to work evenings and want to push and push and push, I'd say you should be doing that thing, Like, don't hold yourself back, risk it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Awesome Inc podcast, where we highlight people pursuing their definition of, you guessed it, awesome. So buckle up and get ready for some more success story adventures and failures from Kentucky's tech and entrepreneur community. Hey y'all, welcome back to this episode of the Awesome Inc podcast. I'm sitting across the table from someone who knew me when I was a wee little lad, Jason Mize. He was a former APAX Software employee here, and we go way back to when I was first getting started around the Awesome Inc team. And Jason, you've quite a background, and I want to talk about it because you are someone who has left some of the working world, done a lot of stuff. You went through the Awesome Inc Awesome Inc U Bootcamp. You then worked for APAX, and you've bounced around to a handful of software companies, learning various skill sets. And somebody on our team paid you a very sincere compliment this morning when I was asking about you, saying, Jason's the kind of guy that doesn't let anything stop him. So if someone says, hey, we need to learn this skill set or something in this stack, you'll just say, hey, I'll do it. That was a really cool trait here. I guess your former colleagues, I don't know if that's the right term.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then them to say that for you. So
that's high praise. That's really nice.
Yeah. Well, hey, you deserve it. That's all I'll say.
Garrett, thanks for having me on here, man. It's been fun seeing how you've grown from just entering the company to taking it all over here. You're in charge of everything around here anymore.
Yeah, you hear that, Brian?
Awesome.
Jason saying I'm taking everything over.
Yep, it says now. I can tell.
I appreciate it. Well, Jason, let's I'll set the stage here for you, and then we'll dive in. So again, just mention that you've got a wide background. You run your company, Stellar TechWorks.
Stellar TechWorks.
And we'll talk about that quite a bit. But you've also gone from restaurant, co-ran a coffee shop, a handful of things, to then going through a coding boot camp to hone in your skill set, to then working at a handful of companies. Literally just said all of that before, which is fine. But would you mind sharing a bit of your background? Because again, you went from studying music, I believe at Tennessee Tech, to working in a slew of areas as a GM, co-ran a coffee shop. Talk about some of what you've done that has led you to where you currently are. Just maybe some of the narrative that goes a layer deeper.
Yeah. So I'm an entrepreneur. I run Stellar TechWorks. The Stellar TechWorks is me and my best friend Sherman Adelson. We've been friends from 7th grade, 8th grade,
right on,
way back. And he's both best friend and also one of the smartest people I know. So I jumped on that really early, and we started a company, Stellar TechWorks, back in 2005.
2005.
Yeah. And it hasn't been a full-time thing through all those years, but it was from 2005 until, I can't even count, 2011, 12, something like that, when it was a game development company. And we were making a strategy game, Tales from the Strange Universe, built that from start to completion, ran a successful Kickstarter, did the things. And that was really fun. It was an online web game. I was really focused a lot on the design, the graphics. I did all the graphics. I did, just community building aspects. Went to a whole bunch of game conventions, traveled around, got involved with Run Jump Dev. Shout out to Run Jump Dev, best gaming organization in the world, local thing in Lexington here. It was just a really good time of life. And then we kind of split that up, and I started a coffee house with my wife. We ran that for a few years, which was really fun. And I decided to get back into the programming world and did the boot camp. The Awesome Inc Bootcamp.
The very first one.
The very first one.
So you were the guinea pig that we didn't mess up on.
That's right. That's right. I still salivate when I hear a bell, but they Nick Such and Matt Smith, they they started that very first one and ran it. It was a little crew of us, like 10 of us. I'm still friends with a whole bunch of former boot campers. It was just a crazy experience. Wildly, I think about it in terms of, it's similar to like getting dropped in the middle of Argentina and you don't speak Spanish, and it's immersive learning. You'll go from not speaking Spanish to, being able to find your way around and find the bathrooms and order food and stuff like that in days, because otherwise, no bathrooms, no food. You're really motivated. The boot camp was very much like that for me. Like it was had a little bit of money after selling the coffee shop, but it's not going to go forever. We're going to do this and it's all in. And just living and breathing coding was really great. Scary, terrifying, totally immersive. Came out the other side. I'd recommend it to anybody. Boy, that conversation didn't start there. Let's see. You were asking about like.
No, you're good. That was super organic. I loved all that.
Yeah, the music. I'm definitely a musician. Studied music back in college. I've got a band around town, the Mini Splendid Things. You can look them up on Spotify. Good stuff, I think. I still do that. That's free time, Jason, in my copious free time. I like to read. I like to paint. I do a lot of watercoloring, stuff like that. But primary entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, that's right on. And I think one of the things that's really enjoyable in any conversation like this, Jason, is you hear people who most people have done a lot of things. And we talk about this at Awesome Inc. We have something called the luck surface area. You try a lot of things, you realize not for me. You try something else. Hey, I like this. Let me put more time and effort to it.
Yeah.
You meet people around that thing, and you grow your community, you grow your luck. And so it's cool for me to hear that you started out in the game developer world.
Yeah.
Friends with John Meister, had him as a professor in college. He's great. The Run Jump Dev crew. We love what they do. And for you to say it was in this world, stepped away from it, tried something with my family. You were GM at a restaurant, totally different sector. Then to say, hey, I missed what I was doing previously.
Absolutely.
How can I go back and accelerate my growth?
Yeah.
In the boot camp. What do you think? And this is something I like to ask our boot campers. What do you think made it well worthwhile making that plunge, making that jump into trying it?
It was it's that immersion.
Okay.
Basically, it's, you can, in theory, take 3 months off of work, watch a whole bunch of videos and get on Udemy and take a course and do all the same things that we did in the boot camp. And you can do that round the clock and you can really push yourself hard, but there's a difference between being able to, every time you hit a stumbling block, have Matt Smith say, oh, it's doing it like that because of this. and what would have taken me 9 months off of work stumbling through Udemy courses was that 3 months. And it was just a highly effective use of my time.
Yeah, that's a great way to say that. And I probably sound like a broken record because I say some of the same things many times on this show, but I got a CS degree in college, and what I learned in 4 years, I'm watching people do at a much quicker rate. Thankful that I had a scholarship to pay for school, so it didn't cost me nearly as much as it could have. So I completely understand the acceleration, the fast pace, the immersion is so valuable.
I've had the pleasure of working in a number of different companies that hired college graduates straight out of college, and then also hired some boot campers. So I've gotten to work hands-on in both those situations, and they're different. They each have strengths in totally different areas.
I would say so,
but they seem to balance out really nicely, where like they both have strengths in different areas and weaknesses in different areas, but they're in general both really useful hires. If anybody's thinking about hiring a bootcamp grad out there, it's not a bad call.
I'll make sure that's the first part of this episode. So again, yeah, you're in the boot camp. Glad to hear some of your takeaways. You said you're so close with your cohort. That's a really admirable trait, because when you're with people on teams or groups for an extended period of time, you went through that experience.
Oh,
you can always pick back up where you left off and recall that thing.
absolutely. Absolutely. We've been in the trenches.
And you said a few of your cohort mates all are now entrepreneurs, which is a really cool thing. You learn a new
Yeah.
skill set, then you apply it and do something else.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I think is really cool is after you went through the boot camp, I know that you stuck around the Awesome Inc space a little bit, and you taught some of our coding clubs, some
Yeah.
of our programs where you got to go from being a student to being Mr. Miyagi, being a teacher. And then from there, then you became a part of APAX Software. And
It was actually a little bit of overlap there where
Okay.
right out of the boot camp, Apex hired me to be a programmer for them, which was brilliant. They're an amazing company just chock full of talent and experts. And I got to rub elbows with those people every day. And on the other side of that, in the mornings, Nick Such and the university program were paying me to come in and kind of mentor the new boot camps as they came through. Just kind of, I would work puzzles with them, talk about language basics, the really simple stuff, so that the teacher, when he came in an hour after me, didn't have to go over here's where you put your semicolon. He
Mhm.
could do like theory and deeper application stuff. That was an amazing time because I was getting experience with Apex, learning new things, and getting the experts there to show me how they do things. And then I was also every morning kind of reiterating over the basics, mentoring other people. And that was a nice learning time for me.
No, that's super cool. I think that is probably one of the more valuable aspects is to see, and you can't see it. Jason's mic stand keeps falling over on his boom arm, so it's kind of silly.
Oh, it's hilarious.
But it is cool to see that for the boot camp. I feel like maybe every second or third cohort,
Yeah.
someone then comes back and they teach the morning session that
Yeah.
you used to teach, and so it's cool to see that cyclical function.
Oh,
Former students are now being part of the teaching staff.
at this point, I think like Josh Stewart's taking over as the head instructor.
Yeah.
But I'm mentored him in the boot camp that he came through just like one or two right after me.
Mhm.
Just amazing.
So Josh, you hear that your former teacher is you're the reason that you're in the
That's
position
right.
you are.
I can take credit for that. You're welcome, Josh. You're welcome.
So tell me this. So after you again navigated from boot camp, from teaching, all the while you still have Stellar TechWorks.
Yeah.
And then you also bounce around from a few companies. iReport Source, which was a fellowship company out of Northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Lucid App, is that how you pronounce it?
It is.
Okay, cool. And then Computer Services Inc. with John Williams out of Paducah, he's a Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Famer. Can you talk about some of the maybe the major takeaways that you've learned at each stage of working with a new company? I had no idea how to do this, so I really developed a figured out mentality. Or, gosh, going from a startup to a C-suite company, learned a whole bunch more.
I mean, when I was at Apex, I got to get my hands in a whole lot of what I kind of consider smaller projects, but you're talking about something that you're going to be working on for 6 or 8 months. Smallish projects, they're big. They're not a website, but they're something that you can see the end of pretty well. When I left Apex, I went to work for iReport Source, and they're a lovely little startup up in Cincinnati. Christy Brown started them. And that was really educational in that it was a totally different frameworks and languages than what I had been using at Apex. So Apex was, not to get too technical, but it was a lot of Python and Django and a little bit of React on top. And iReport Source the team was run by Jason Roll, who's just bright as he can be. I learned so much from that guy. And it was React Native. It was a mobile app instead of a web app. It really ignited my love of working on mobile apps. React Native, especially at that point, was a super new, cutting edge, fresh out of the stable kind of thing that nobody knew how to do right. And so it was fun getting to see those really early stages, kind of almost pre-documentation stages of figuring out how to do mobile development with React Native and things like that, which is still one of my favorite things to work in. went from there over to Lucid App. And that, I tell you, the thing I really took away from both Lucid and iReportSource was that they were both new startups, and their founders, MJ and Christy, individually, they both just really had that entrepreneur vision where they were hungry, they were ambitious, they had big views about what they wanted to accomplish, and what they wanted to accomplish involved like educating the world and organizing the world and saving the world. And they used big terms when they were doing this. And I really got a lot of drive and joy out of listening to them talk. And that's a lot of what I enjoy about my work at Stellar, is that the clients, usually most of our clients, they're either like totally startup or 5 or 6 years, under 25 or so employees. They're companies, they're local things. But they've still got that kind of drive and vision in a way that you don't get the excitement of with some larger places. And then I went from there over to computer services, which was educational in a whole nother way, because this is a company that's been around for 50 years. They're financial software. They're super stable. And you've got this kind of polar opposites where with a startup, all the programming and development and project development is all get it out the door as quick as possible. You just got to get it done, get it made. We can fix it later, but you got to get it in front of people as quickly as possible so you can start iterating, because you've always got that runway. That runway is always burning. And a lot of it's burning paying your developers. So you want them to produce. And then you go to computer services, and the goal is different. They've got a working product. What they're trying to do is iterate on it, improve it, bring new features to bear, maybe start new aspects where they can sell new things to different parts of previously unexplored territory. But it's slow and it's stable. They're cautious about releases. They put everything through like a 2-week testing, and you build test, and you have time for like kind of in-depth robustness that startups don't always have. And I had that experience over at computer services. My friend Sherman, my partner at Stellar, had that at Kroger when he worked for them. Large companies that really need things to not break. And seeing what that level of robust approach to development looks like has really helped me when I'm working with the startup clients that we have, not paint ourselves into a corner. We've got to get it done. We've got to get it done fast. We don't necessarily have time for all the robust things that are going to make it really powerful later on, but we know where to leave room for those. We know where to build the space for that. Here's where that's going to go. Here's what it's going to look like when we get there. That was my big takeaway from that period of kind of moving around different companies. During all of that, we were Stellar definitely became more of a weekend sideline gig.
Okay.
But it was ongoing. I was largely doing work for different, there was maybe 3 or 4 different software houses between here and a little bit in Western Kentucky, and some people in Frankfurt, that they would get a client or something that was in a framework that they didn't support. Their developers on staff didn't know how to do. And somehow my name would get to them, usually through networking, people that I had worked with who recommended me. They'd be like, hey, can we pay you to do 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, and build this thing that we don't know how to build? And whether I knew how to build it or not, the answer was always, yeah, totally. And then I would learn how to do it.
I'm the guy.
And then I would learn how to do it. Sherman would help me. And we would make it happen. And then a few years ago, we those kind of turned into word of mouth, and we made a connection with a larger client and went full time back into it.
I think one of the things that's really special about your story is you guys it never seems like you completely shelved Stellar. And that was always ongoing. And hey, we can come back to this later. And where I want the rest of this conversation to go for the next handful of minutes is that's probably not an easy thing that people do, and B, I'd love to hear, with everything you've gained over the last 15 years, how has Stellar changed from focusing on the game world, and you guys did the wireframes, the prototyping, all that, to what does Stellar do now, since you're both full time, and your buddy Sherman, who also went and worked for a big company like Kroger. You both came back from maybe being a little wet behind the ears to saying, oh, actually now we have a clear vision of what we want.
That's you really summed it up. Is that it's 15 years of just banging my head against different problems, and all of that gives you experience. So I've had to do design work. We've found people that do good design work. We found a slew of people that we can hire as contractors to kind of, when we swell up and need a new client, we've got more hours. I've made contacts with all these different people. We've worked in, everything from being a manager at the restaurant, gave me the skills to run a team, to schedule and keep a team paid and plan out budgets, things like that, to working on different size projects, from little 3 or 4 month affairs to big, massive, large team projects that take years and years to develop. I've just gotten to see a whole lot of everything at this point. Like I've worked in a whole lot of different environments, a whole lot of different size projects for different people, and it's just been a whole lot of learning, and an unbelievable amount of learning.
Which is a good thing. It's probably a quote by unknown, who has many of those, but once you stop learning, you're screwed, essentially. It's like once you think you've accomplished it all, you know everything, you're wrong. I mean, the more I know, the more I learn, to realize there's so much more that I don't know. And and that also keeps me hungry to want to know more. Jace, what has been maybe one of your biggest successes over the last 15 years as a developer and as an entrepreneur? Maybe what's one of your biggest blunders, or the biggest egg on my face? If you don't mind sharing.
So going way back, even before Stellar TechWorks was a game development company, we spent a very short amount of time, maybe 9 months, something like that. Similar to the way we are now, where we were considering ourselves a software house, where we were going to develop specifically small scale projects. At that point, we were like, we're going to do nothing but WordPress sites. We're going to target very small businesses around here. We did a whole bunch of websites for like local artists, and it's like a big epiphany that I had somewhere along the way is that, what did they say? You can have like one of 3 things when you hire somebody. You can have quality, or speed, or cheapness. Like it can be cost effective, or you can get it fast, or you can get it really high quality. But you can almost never get 2 of them. You usually get 1 if you're lucky. And back then, what we were going for was cheap and fast and small scale projects. But it turned out that we weren't good at turning off the quality, and we lost. So our dollar to hour ratio was so bad, and just because we couldn't stop delivering, like we were making these handcrafted artisanal websites for people and having to charge them, a few $1,000s for WordPress out of the box site rates. It was a terrible business model. Terrible. And we were like, this is atrocious. You want to make a game? Let's make a game. And we went a different direction. But when we came back around to wanting to become a full-on software house, making products for clients, I really decided to lean into the fact that by nature, Sherman and I are the quality approach. Like, we just can't be happy if we're not trying to make it really, really good. And that's a different clientele that you chase. You chase the people who find that to be the most important aspect of what they're looking for in a company. And that's my biggest learning curve takeaway. Once I figured out what I like to deliver and started looking for the clients who were looking for that, it all started working so much better. The clients are happier. We're making money. It's been revolutionary. And if I could go back and smack 25-year-old me upside the head, I'd say, look at what you like to do. Find those people and get them to pay you for it. You know?
That was a nugget right there. Wow, that's so good. Yeah, well, I don't have too much more to ask because I feel like you have answered it pretty organically. I mean, I think a few things. One I'd like to know is what's maybe like one of your best pieces of advice you'd give to an entrepreneur that is either struggling or maybe even someone that, you know, they are 99% convinced they should be an entrepreneur, but that 1% is still holding them back. What would you say to them?
The people that I know who are entrepreneurs, they don't do it because they have an option not to. They're never going to be completely happy working for someone else. And I've worked for other people and it's not been bad. I've learned so much working for other people and those have been great experiences for me, but I've always come back around to just enjoying getting to make decisions, getting to make major impacts in the way that I want to, I've got a relatively high risk tolerance. I think you have to have that if you're an entrepreneur. But if you're thinking about getting into starting your own company, I think that's your question. Why am I doing this? If it's because you've got the big vision and you're excited about it and it drives you to want to work on weekends and want to work evenings and want to push and push and push, I'd say you should be doing that thing, you know? Like, don't hold yourself back, you know, risk it. You'll never be happy not risking it.
That's awesome. Jason, last question. Where can people find you either in the community, online, and how can they support Stellar?
Absolutely. StellarTechWorks.com. We're out there. We're always looking for our next exciting client that we can work with and build things for.
That's great. Well, Jason, hey, it's been a treat getting to see your face, getting to hang out with you. I think actually one last question off the cuff.
Yeah.
What instrument is your best? I know you're multi-talented.
Yeah. I played just a little bit of everything, like piano, guitar, bass, drums. I sing, but I'd say guitar. Guitar's probably my thing. In my band, we all kind of swap instruments around and stuff like that, but the guitar's the one that's kind of mine.
I love that. Well, actually, very last thing that we'll hit end. When's your guys' next show? So listeners can come out and support you.
We have not been playing out. We've been locking ourselves up in the studio, recording our next album.
Even better,
which I am so excited about. This one's going to be, we're doing some cool stuff on this album. I think it'll be coming out probably first part of next year.
Okay.
Is the goal.
January 1st.
We've got maybe another January 1st. Absolutely. You heard Garrett promise it here. It's going to happen. We're doing some exciting new stuff on it, and I'm psyched to get it out the door. It's got another song or two to record, and then we've got to do a whole bunch of mixing. So
I can't wait to hear it. So Jason, again, you've done everything in life. You're a musician, you're an entrepreneur, you're a developer. what can't you do? I'm not surprised. So again, thanks for your time today. Good seeing you, and I can't wait to hear about Stellar and your band here in the upcoming weeks.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, Jared.
Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Awesome Inc's podcast. And another quick thank you to Lee Rosevere and a few members from our community who provide the music that you hear in this show. Lastly, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Or even better, come on down to our space. Come be a part of our community and get plugged in, and let's start something awesome together. You guys rock. We'll see you next time.